share my screen and continue to discuss. Now, I don't have an option to share right now. Yes, I do.
No?
Okay, so at the previous meeting, we heard from Cotton Shires about fault traces that are on the town map and are not on the town map. And two locations were discussed of interest. One, I believe you call the Barrowcow fault, Barrowcow Sargent fault, and the map shown is the Hawthorns area. The blue line is a trace from, I can't remember what. It could be the, right, so here is the town map, right? And it shows the fault breaks in 1906 under the firehouse or Rainey's auto station. Here is the Hawthorns. The 100-meter marker is simply a fiducial to show me the length along which we collected a seismic profile last time I did a one-day exercise with students. That is the length that I've done. Not at this location. So that's simply a schematic of what might simply be done. This is the, right, this is Google Earth with the USGS quaternary fault traces.
Interesting.
Superimposed. And so this is one area in which the committee expressed interest. The second area in which the committee expressed interest is the southern end of the open area adjacent to the Windy Hill parking lot, approaching Sequoias. And again, this is the town map across which I have put a single 100-meter fiducial marker. Right. And here is the USGS database on Google Earth of the same area. Right. And I have crudely reconciled these two maps by overlaying the roads and trying to match the scale. Okay. So.
Okay, I have one question, if I may. Bob, could you point out the third location we discussed last time? Brenner's third location, which was the in the Neely, the winery field.
We're talking about the Black Mountain Fault.
Mountain here, yeah. This has to be Black Mountain. Yes. Because we're no longer talking about Barrowcow.
Yes, these are strands of the San Andreas, right? And then the question is how to name them.
Yeah, the question, well, okay, could you go to the screen, Bob, and point out the linear ridge and sag?
Or
they are on the map.
If we want, we can bring it up on Google Earth.
No, because they're not on, well, no, let's see, probably. Yeah.
Horse facility. We build on the sound of this fault, occupied by horses. That is the south or southeast with the big bulge of the fifth shore of the pressure ridge. You can see the north maybe we've got sags. It's my opinion that in here where the branching takes place at the Black Mountain Fault. I've now switched screens to Google Earth to show this location. So this is the hang on, which is the horse Okay, so I'm familiar with this horse property that is by the pickleball courts, and I've never been to this location,
Well, that's the Neely Winery.
Neely Winery. Okay, yes. Um, Right. Mhm. Right, right. Eh, no worries, no worries. Mm. The parking lot, right. Yes.
If I remember right, John Wallace said that,
Steve?
John Wallace said that there'd been trenching in there. Do you know, can you point out where his trench was?
Gas and electric.
No, geoengineering, I think.
Oh, okay.
Geoengineering or something like that. Geotechnical engineering could be, yeah.
So,
And they did not find the diagonal line.
do we know if they found any of the other marked traces? Oh, they did. Awesome. Okay. So a rhetorical question then is, who was the client for whom this work was done? The Sequoias, and whether they would be willing to share this report as a matter of public interest and community service.
Okay.
I move that the chair approaches the Sequoias and asks.
You have, yeah. No, need you taking notes probably, thank you. The Sequoias more recently, this was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, had trenching done right in between the buildings and Portola Road down in the parking lot area in front. And the result I have third hand only because the report was not given to the town as private. Result was that no go for building staff housing there. And the most recent activity was 6,800 years ago in the trench that they found in the trench there.
So my understanding is that if a report was I don't know the obligations of property owners to make public reports that have Alquist Priolo um, uh, ramifications. Clearly, the Sequoias recognize those ramifications and chose not to proceed with their building plan. But it sounds as though they were able to do so without making those issues part of the public record. Here, I am very limited in my understanding of the legislation. My understanding is that no existing structure is affected by the Alquist Priolo Act. However, if a building were to be sold, or a new building erected, or a modification exceeding some percentage, and I'm not clear what that number is, were to be made, then the Alquist Priolo Act comes into force. And notifications to be made, or building plans modified or declined, refused by the town.
That's
So
correct. Yeah.
now, given the Sequoias is doing everything according to code and plan and law, I am not clear why they would regard the information as something they are not willing to share with the public. Apart from scaring the old folk who are living there and the young folk who are living there, I can't think of a reason why they would worry about releasing the information. I suppose they might, I assume they already have a duty to tell new residents. I don't know, do landlords have to declare
Well,
proximity to the fault?
well,
Oh.
it's clear that, I mean, the long blue line on the, between the buildings and Portola Road
This one.
is well known.
Right,
That-
okay.
That is
And-
the
and-
eastern trace of the.
And I missed where their new other trench was.
Okay,
You can describe or even draw here if you want on the screen. I see, that was the staff, the planned staff house.
Wow.
You mentioned maybe you'd heard 6,800-year-old movement. So it's near kind of where they have their park horse and parking and so on.
In the parking lot.
Yes, that's Portola Road. I don't know what that green area is.
It's a bowling green,
Bowling Green, okay.
Oh, right, lawn bowling
lawn bowling.
and swimming pool. That's what's there.
But you think they may have found an additional fault, not the known trace. So,
So one thing that maybe, I'm very curious to see whatever they found at the Sequoias, but
Robert, I'm going to bring you into the conversation. Yes, I am too. Is it possible to get a report on the trenching of Sequoias from about 3 years, maybe 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, that reportedly found activity within the last 10,000 years? And they were planning to put, they were hoping to put staff housing in that area, but that's not going to happen. Do you know whether it's possible for the town to request the report? Because I did a search a few months ago and it didn't come up. Oh.
I
Wait,
think,
I'm sorry, could I get you to speak into the microphone? This is, I'd like to record this. Let's start all over here.
Robert,
So,
my aspiration is simply to make the information available to the committee, though recognizing it would then become part of the public record. The use is yet to be determined in understanding the geology and, if appropriate, updating town notes.
yes, so I understand a search was done. Was a search of town records and no record was found?
I asked for all geotechnical reports on the sequoias, and one came out from, 20 years ago or something, and not.
And was this via Cottonshire Bridges or
Was it
was this through the town or
through the town?
Okay. We would have to look specifically within that permit. I think it'd be probably a building permit for any information related to this project and see if we can dive into there. If the town has it, we can certainly bring it. That would be a request through building and planning. And also for the town geologist as well to see what they have on file from this. If we were to reach out separately to the Sequoia's consultant or geotechnical engineer or licensed geologist who performed this work, that would be a request. But anything through the town, we can certainly do. That would go through the building and planning department.
And it would be a request for them to voluntarily share this work.
Correct.
There is absolutely no requirement for them to do so.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah, just a good faith.
that'd be in good faith. Yeah.
And this would apply to the 20-year-old trench as well.
Oh,
The PG
that's a public record. I
the,
mean,
the trench is a public record.
the trench that we were talking
Yes,
about.
the PGE
Um,
trench.
I don't know.
And
Uh,
that also, that trenching would presumably produce a quite voluminous report with photographs and maybe no ages, but at least images. And that would be of immense interest.
Is the question if it would be a public record available through
Well,
the town or via?
No, no.
me?
We understand it is not a public record in the town. Neither Bob nor Nan is aware of it.
Yes.
And so again, it would be a request to the Sequoias, whether they would be willing to share it if it can be located.
Yes, and when we start getting into 20-year records, there's a question of if they have it on file still. 20-year records,
Somebody has a paper copy.
one would hope. Sometimes, sometimes individual facilities are less diligent with their and organized than you or I.
Well, maybe we should make an appointment with Cotton Shires and go down there and look through their boxes, see what they have on the sequoias.
Well, first we would need to talk to the Sequoias.
Is there any?
I suppose we could ask Cotton
So-
Shires if it exists.
Cotton Shires, as the town geologist, you can reach out to them and request this information to go down there and look at their boxes and see what they have on file. That's probably a very good method because remember Cotton Shires is the town geologist, so that information would be available working for the town and our geologist. Yeah.
But we've no idea whether they would ever have received a copy of this information if it was carried out by other companies on behalf of a private group, Sequoia.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they've got it on record. I would imagine the town likely received the documentation. But I was not part of the original review process. There'd have to be research on what was permitted and what we have on file with that permit. If we know the timeline of when it was completed, and we do know that it was with the Sequoias, speaking colloquially here, I think the most effective way of going about this would be to talk to building planning, seeing if we can pull all records associated with permit approval. Then going with that same permit item and seeing what Cottonshire has on file associated with the address, the building owner being the Sequoias, and then also the permit in which likely this paperwork was all filed underneath. Does that kind of make sense? So you basically have an address, you have the owner, and then the permit is zooming in to the timeline and the actual permit itself. That'd be the best way to try to gather this information. Separately, you could go to the Sequoias and request this information. Sometimes, sometimes individual building owners are not as organized as one would hope.
Uh,
Is it the case that they have no obligation to share reports that were done on their own property at their own expense? If a building permit was not, if it's not done under the work isn't
Correct.
done under a permit.
So they have no obligation to provide records, even if the building permit was done. I'd have to look into their legal obligations, but I do know that they're not required to provide individual paperwork on the permit exactly. They may, there is an obligation to have a certificate of occupancy, a final, basically. I'm not sure if they're required to actually have a record of that on file themselves, but the obligation for the Sequoias is very limited for what they have to provide. Because assuming they've already gotten a final certificate of occupancy and they are occupying that space with a final permit, more or less their legal obligation is complete.
I think maybe I'd like to just describe a hypothetical. I admit that I don't know the facts, but if I'm assuming that maybe they were interested in doing something where they would involve creating a new project, and they did their own geotechnical work and they found something, but then they realized that there's a problem and they never then pursued it. And so they never asked for a permit. So they never had to get the town involved, and they merely just kept that information that they had to themselves. Now, I have no idea if what I said was true. Did they actually do any of that? I have no idea.
But apparently it is the case that I could dig a trench on my, have a geotechnical firm come and dig a trench on my yard and look at it and cover it up and not say anything. Is that correct?
I would have to look into the exact requirements for what requires a permit and what level of excavation and trenching requires a permit.
If I'm not, if I'm, well, you can never put 100% of the soil back, even if you compact it as much as you can, but assuming that the soil goes back where it came from, there's no net soil move.
And as simple as a borehole. You do a borehole, do you really need a permit?
S-
You need a permit for both.
So that's a question and really a debate over what level of care requires a permit or not. What I can say is that if they did not file a permit and submit this documentation or a geotechnical report associated with this documentation, they would not be required to. There's debate over maybe if your trench is big enough, wide enough, whatever your trench is, maybe under technicality, you should have a permit. There's some shoring requirements. There's all sorts of safety requirements associated with that. If it happened multiple years ago, I don't want to really go there, at least on this meeting. But what I can say is that if they did not file for permit, even if they had a geotechnical report, we cannot obligate them to provide a report that they did not proceed forward on.
I suggest that if anybody has a particular friend or contact who is resident at the school,
Yeah.
probably the most productive.
I know someone who does.
I was just missing Sue Crane for, we missed for a lot of reasons, but she was a mayor and a very influential resident over there until recently. But there's probably others.
Roland Tabor's wife, Kaisa, is a Sequoias.
Okay, so if I may bring it back to my original question, it is simply, so there are a couple of aspects here. Bob highlighted the desirability of understanding a lateral ridge in this area, but any work that I or my students do obviously requires permission from the property owner, and many property owners are reluctant to give permission for something that might discover unwelcome information. So that's one reason why I haven't investigated property lines around the Windy Hill parking area, and whether there is public land immediately adjacent to that. I think you mentioned you thought it was mid-Penn.
It
I
is.
thought so too, that there was a strip of mid-Penn land across there.
Well, there absolutely is. There's, in the field, you can almost see it in your photograph. The area that is a well-disturbed, that shows a vineyard, is the Neely property there. And then between the driveway of the Neely property is actually easement that goes through
Yeah,
Mid-Peninsula.
that's what I would,
So you just highlighted Mid-Peninsula.
yeah.
So
Really driveways and easement on mid-Penn land?
Yes.
Ah, okay, and the driveway is just above, you see where the Windy Hill,
on this driveway, I think we're
Marker.
talking about, right?
the
Is
driveway,
the driveway that is the easement?
no,
I'll show.
a
No.
little farther south. The, it's parallel to the mid-Penn, to the Windy Hill parking lot. Right there,
I see, covered by trees.
yeah.
Okay. Oh, and then
House
it
is up
curves
on the hill,
round like that, maybe.
and then
Okay.
up.
Right. Well, okay, so that means that there's a reasonable chance of gaining access to that,
The field.
or the field, or simply that driveway.
Yeah.
Which, although disturbed in the top 2 feet, is still could be a great place to work. So that's one possibility. The other is that, again, the hawthorns, if I can find my way there,
And that's the other fault.
is the other fault,
There's,
and there the challenge is, again, it is, I don't know where the property line is. I assume it is all,
I can show you the
Mid-Penn.
property line.
um,
Oh, where are we? Where are we?
so the hawthorns
Where Hawthorne's, okay.
that's the old house, I believe, right along Saddleback. Yeah. It's probably. Right, it does, which is also mid-Penn. It also is mid-Penn, right? Yeah. Is that good? Yes. Mhm. So the email that I sent Bob asked him to construct a couple of crude cross sections, just hypotheticals, across
That's what
the
you mean.
line of these faults.
Yeah.
Because Bob McLaughlin marks this as a thrust fault, or in his very generic map, which would mean that we were placing, based on the maps, in principle, we would be placing basalt greenstone over greenstone. And
Who mapped that?
Placing whatever,
greenstone, Franciscan greenstone,
over
basalt.
greenstone over greenstone?
Yes.
Okay.
Uh, So here's a 1974 paper, and you can see that it only just reaches Alpine Road. Oh, I'm sorry, I failed to change my share.
I
Apologies.
have to change it,
Oh.
what you're showing.
There we go. So this is the USGS report from 1974, and Bob McLaughlin mapped this, the Sargent and Berrocal, all the way from Gilroy up to our region, and you can see that his map only just extends into our area, but that is the basis on which I suggested that he would have mapped this fault as a thrust fault dipping back into the San Andreas. Thus, San Andreas in a cross section here would have thrust faults like this that would dip back in. I suspect that's the model that he had in mind, his mental model of what we were looking at. And that means that we would be looking here at, again, based on the town map, Franciscan over Franciscan.
I think you're looking at the
Oh, I'm on the wrong side.
Priory property right at the tip of his,
Yeah, no, I meant to draw my section right here by.
oh, okay.
Yes. But he's labeled this fault as a thrust fault,
Yes.
and I assume his vision was that it was a flower structure related to the San Andreas.
Suppose the Prairie must have had some geotechnical work done associated with that big new gym.
Yeah, but not necessarily down where the fault was. A fault supposedly runs closer to Portola Road, and the gym is back at the back of the flat
The edge
line.
of the field, yeah.
Yeah.
So, returning to my questions to Bob, the Hawthorne's region is open land, it's sloping land, the access is not that clear in terms of staging people and vehicles and equipment, but it's obviously of significant interest. The other site is much easier to stage. The uncertainty there is that in this region, we would be looking at an unknown thickness of sedimentary rock within the fault zone,
Yes.
and possibly an inability to meaningfully cross these traces significantly far into the sun, which is required to have sufficient offset, particularly the seismic work, to properly understand what's beneath it. So those are my initial considerations when trying to think what is feasible for a student project, and in addition, what is useful geophysically and could get information for the town. Those are the sorts of questions that are currently in my mind are of interest. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Simon. Yeah, this gets more and more interesting and involves now contacting possibly MidPen. You know that MidPen is planning to build a parking lot, did you know, for the Hawthorns? Right, and I think, Robert, you can tell me if I'm right. Well, I guess it hasn't come before the town yet, has it? The MidPen parking, okay. I think the latest plan is to basically extend Portola Road into the Hawthorne's property and build a parking lot right there.
So neither to use the existing access that the ranger uses for the house, nor to branch off south.
Pardon?
Well, I mean, you know,
Oh,
I
oh,
haven't,
I
I haven't attended any of the meetings, but there's an existing road that goes up to the house where the ranger lives.
Yeah, no, they
There is,
decided not to do
okay, there's an existing saddleback road on the other side of the property fence. It sounds like you're suggesting they would go in here and put a parking lot. Right. Right. But no one's going to live there.
Since
So we have the opportunity to learn from them, but
I listened to part of a mid-pen meeting and just happened, I lost the context because I hadn't heard what came before, but the geologist said that there was no fault there. I don't know where exactly they were looking, but they said they did not find a fault. So, were they looking for the Barracuda? So we could possibly request from Midpen their trenching report or whatever they used, if it wasn't trenching it. Huh?
And so please leave the screen as you have it. You have a blue line on the screen right now. And my father and I found, and we put it in the report that we published on the San Andreas Fault, there's a map, a hand-drawn map by Branner that shows surface rupture exactly where you have your blue line.
right. And it's now shown on the town map. I didn't check whether it was formerly the firehouse or Ramey's, but the breakage is shown just about there.
Well, the town map just has that symbol that
That's right,
just,
yes.
but it doesn't actually give you any information about the azimuth or anything. But the hand-drawn map by Branner, which I'm happy to share with you, is very clear. It is what that blue line is. But I will tell you that because of the map that he used, he was drawing his line on a copy of the Santa Cruz quadrant, which is what, 30-minute sheet or something.
1 to 2
So
hundred.
any kind of a line on it is actually covering a very wide area. So you cannot say with precision that it's, well, where Nan is relative to where I am. It's just somewhere in there.
Okay, so I would certainly be interested to make contact with Midpen and with their geologist. I have no contacts within either organization. I don't know whether the ranger is still the name of the person whose name I've currently forgotten. But,
Well, my understanding is they still live there.
um,
I assume that when Midpen applies for a permit to build the parking lot, or to develop, they're doing several things there, but I assume that when they apply to the town, they will have to submit the geotechnical report. I would hope. If it goes before the Planning Commission or ASCC, it would need to have the report, and Cotton Shires. In fact, I wonder if they've already looked at it. Maybe not, maybe not. Anyway, so that's another question, can we, for Midpen? I will see if anyone I know has any connections there. It's Midpen's a little tricky. So, okay.
And so to try and summarize, Nan, will you work with Rob to look for the planning permit numbers for both the Sequoia's bowling field and for the PGE trench 2 decades ago? And then that could lead to you making a query to Cotton Shires about both those events and future work at the Hawthorns.
Yes,
Uh,
and
and-
then the third thing would be to have a request from the committee or the town to the Sequoias for the more recent report. Thank you.
So I'm encouraging you, Nan, to initiate the building permit record request. And then we'll follow up after that and see what we should do next.
Well, it's more than, oh, go ahead. Robin.
So just really quickly to confirm, I would not be the person to speak to on that one, on Public Works, everything Public Works related. So a building permit would be researched through the Building and Planning Department, which would be Steve McCarris right now. Steve McCarris is the interim. And then what's the other item that you just mentioned?
But because every request to Cotton Shires then is a charge to the town, that's why I'm encouraging you to bundle our requests together and to make them to Cotton Shires in your role as chair.
Both requests.
Potentially all three, if we can locate two different Sequoias permits and a Hawthorns activity. Thank you.
And then I would encourage the committee to reach out to Sequoias directly, and then feel free to CC myself. Just it might give it more weight if you CC me.
And it sounds like Bob may know somebody who lives there and could explore from the bottom up as opposed from the top down.
Okay,
It's always best not to get shut down at the beginning. So I think we fully addressed that topic. And so I encourage Nan to move on to the next.
Oh, I'd be happy to approach the Sequoias too. I know a lot of people there. I would start with, right, Beth Lyon, the widow of one of your fellow faculty. Yeah.
That's Ron Lyons'
Yeah.
widow? Oh my goodness, I knew Ron, I talked with him, but I've never met her.
Well, okay, let's.
So I'll make a note to ask her this
Okay.
about how to approach.
How to approach someone who could approach someone who could approach. the
Yeah.
resident.
Yeah, if a resident were to ask out of interest,
Mm-hmm.
a resident with a geological connection,
Yeah, and the residents are pretty
Spouse.
organized
That's
and they have influence in their own right.
and there are
Oh, we
many
should-
people there of the intellect and interest to have a natural desire to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
one of the residents also is Kaisa Tabor, is Roland Tabor's wife.
Mom just gave me these sheets. I don't know whether she has multiple copies of these. This looks like wayside.
Okay, so, this is an ongoing project also, so I'm switching subjects, but it's the same agenda item. This is okay, so Bob finished essentially finished the, map, the evacuation map, showing the major evacuation routes of central geologic houses. And so then the next part of the project, which we find there is demand for, is to have a set of neighborhood.
I've shared on the screen the town geology map of the
Come on over.
Okay.
Okay. So, here, so Simon has the, government printed out on the screen, and I superimposed it just very roughly, very quickly last night over Bob's, evacuation map, which is the, brown, the dark line. So this, you have Bob's map, which I enlarged, and the ground movement potential map for roughly the same area. And then I put the ground movement potential map over it. So it's hard to see, but anywhere a road touches a pink or red marking on the ground movement potential map, you've got a potential problem. But so I thought, well, at first I thought, well, it's going to be pretty easy because all you have to do is mark where the landslides touch the road, or you get arrows showing where the landslides are moving toward the road. You could do that, and you could have a series of sort of dashes along the roads showing where potential landslides might block the evacuation. Okay. But then that's a little more complicated. You've got hayfields up at the top, the shortest road, and then the one that goes through the blue, which is Gitano sandstone, and is nice and firm, no landslides. That's the Santa Maria area, and then the bottom long road is Wayside. So here's the question. If I'm living up there, and I haven't lived there very long, and I know there are landslides, but I'm concerned about evacuation. What is the most useful information for me? Is it to have marked on the road where landslides might impinge on the road and stop an evacuation or slow it down? Or is it, is there some other way of doing this?
Is that a question
It's a question.
for myself?
Yeah,
or-
open question, anybody, yeah. Any thoughts? So is it useful to have sort of a series of dashes, non-uniformly spaced on the roads showing where landslides could stop an evacuation? Is that helpful? In terms of the map, we can describe it, and we had intended to write a narrative to go along with this, and we can talk about.
Well, I struggled with this, and when I made the map, I went down a rabbit hole that the rabbit hole was entered with the best of intentions, but I quickly climbed back out of it. What I did was I was trying to put like this hybrid map that you have that has town geology as well as the roads well shown. One of the things I recognize is that it made showing all of the landslide potential in this town made the entire map very busy. And our target audience for the evacuation map is really to have the roads show up well. And so we sort of backed off by putting a special symbol on Alpine Road and nowhere else. I have a bunch of thoughts. Many of them are contradictory, so I'm kind of a mess. But one is to have neighborhood maps that show the hazards for the neighborhood. And that would be different than, essentially one idea is to leave the current evacuation map mostly alone, but have other maps like what you've just done that show the landslide potential. If we try to show the landslides of the entire town on the evacuation map, it's going to be well, we could do it, but I'm not opposed to it, but it's, on one level, it's going to be, people are going to look at that and go, what do we do with that information?
If I could comment that I think this is where managing to reconcile all maps into a single GIS database then makes it very easy to extract only those layers one cares about. And I see we have GIS as an action item on later on the agenda.
When the town does have GIS as an action item as well. It's, I'll just say it's difficult with our limited staff. I think we've got 12 staff members total right now, so we're doing the best we can.
Okay, well, I'll jump ahead. Darcy has convened, I guess, just call it an ad hoc, ad hoc GIS working group of people, anyway, staff and the intern who work for GIS, ArcGIS, and any committee members who are interested. And Bob and I volunteered for that, and see if you're interested, Simon, if you're interested in joining, reach out. And then MJ Lee from the Wildflower Committee is going to join. And the intern, we have a meeting, I think at 9 o'clock on November 21st, and then another, I think, scheduled for December 4th.
I have no proficiency in that, but I do think of a couple other people who are really involved in the town. At least one of them's on committees who have good GIS proficiency. Is Nona Chiarello come up? I mean, she's pretty proficient. She showed me some of her GIS work, and also Dave Evans. I don't know if he's on any committees. Evans? Yeah, I don't know if he's on any committees, but he recently did a beautiful GIS-based product, which is a map of the whole town focusing on trails and drainages. It's so lovely that we actually have it framed and hanging in our entryway, and a lot of other people in town do too. So he's somebody to just, his particular interest is trails, but he's very GIS capable.
Great. I think Nona has now retired from Jasper Ridge.
Yes, she
So
has.
I
She
think
has.
that she would
So
be
she can spend all her time on this.
absolutely. Anything Nona touches, I think will be done well.
Absolutely.
He's on conservation committee.
Wonderful to have a link from conservation to G.
Yeah, okay.
So I need to go back just really quickly to this
Yes.
evacuation map. Do you guys mind if I just give my few thoughts
Yeah.
on this?
Absolutely.
And this is not necessarily an official perspective, but this is the perspective of the town engineer who's worked quite a bit with evacuation, egress, everything from wildfire safety, so on and so forth. So this isn't necessarily a perspective for this town. This is rather a perspective in general. I've done a lot of evacuation egress up to forensics for the LA fires, and across the state. I like this and I like what we have. Typically, when we do evacuation and egress maps, we assume a standard layperson who may not understand a lot of what they're looking at. I think that this committee brings a huge amount of technical skill, and this is the same issue that I have had in generating maps across the state. And evacuation and egress is that everyone who's very skilled and very knowledgeable wants to put more knowledge to be more helpful. And typically, when we look at best practices for how we create evacuation and egress maps, those sorts of maps may be provided to first responders and technical personnel. We typically do not provide those sorts of maps to the public. They might be publicly available, for first responders, but they're not provided as the standard map. In the same way that if you look at a building map that tells you how to evacuate, it will show you the stairs, it'll show you the fire extinguishers, and it'll show you how to get to the stairs and the elevator. But what it won't show you is it won't go through, okay, well, here is a hazardous material containment zone, here's a 2-hour rated wall, here is different hazard zones, here's exactly how it won't do that. In the same way here, we've got a wonderful picture of showing all the hazard zones, showing where there might be landslides. Typically, if we were to look at roads, what we'd typically see is maybe areas which are designated as not recommended stop zones, potential rockfall areas, potential landslide areas to be recommended as no stop areas. But what we would not see is this level of detail, and I actually just overlay that perfectly.
Okay, what I had intended was, let's go back to the enlargement, this page. Okay. Of, Bob's map, just take this and mark on it the places where the landslides might, intrude on the road. So here, 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 like that. Is that useful?
I think it would be useful as a potential hazard area, landfall slash rock area,
But it's,
potentially label on there.
okay, but on this, in the middle road, Santa Maria, which goes through mainly bedrock, the hazard area is only down at the bottom. Okay, so you could mark potential hazard area here. But for hayfields and for, wayside, you've got landslides. They're just all, I mean, it's like dash, 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 all the way. So how do you, what would be most useful for these people?
So typically this is the classic question of where do you start and where do you stop? And typically when we would do this, we would create evacuation maps for the main arterial roads. We would
We've
not
done.
necessarily do it for these neighborhoods. I think this is an opinion, and I think this is an opinion that might go and be a coordinated effort, or at least a discussion with EPC as well.
Because, EPC has the official, evacuation routes from the neighborhoods that, the little yellow arrows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
So,
maybe,
yeah, so, you know, you have to coordinate with that, but, yeah, I was planning to do it, that's,
let's say we had an evacuation route and it was just along this main road. Maybe we would show landslides just along this main road and not show any of these secondary roads. In this case, if they had an evacuation route showing along here, maybe that would be worthwhile doing landslides, but maybe it's something that's just shown for the evacuation routes along there. I don't have a good answer.
but if you live way up here this is on the mountain, and you've just moved in, and you don't really know much about the geology or the hazards, what is most useful to you? You have to get from here up on the mountain down to Portola Road, or at least, yeah, I'm not sure whether there's a place to cut through. It'd be nice if there's something here, but
Maybe an easier way to phrase the question is the new resident on Hayfield and whether they're aware of these gates and the circumstances under which they might be opened
yes.
if
yes,
their
and-
access to Portola Road is blocked by a landslide.
So, yeah, so from, I think there is a way to get from Santa Maria to Wayside. I may be wrong, but I think you can get through here. Okay, so that sort of information and the information about the gates is useful.
I think it'd be useful. I think that there is a question of what the overall goal is, because we're starting to narrow into a close focus.
Like Bob says, yeah, going down the rabbit hole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a question of where do you start, where do you stop, or going down the rabbit hole. And I don't have a good answer to that.
Dan, and put my own opinion in this. I don't have a strong opinion as to do it one way or the other, but I think part of the solution will be really the text. The next assignment is to create a report or booklet that goes along with, that describes all of the difficulties on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis. So like the Wayside, Santa Maria, and Fields could all be one neighborhood. And because they all have similar issues. On one level, I mean, like, if you just look, as you pointed out, at Hayfields, the whole thing is practically a landslide based on the geologic map. You don't need to really necessarily describe exactly where the boundary is on where a landslide stops and a landslide starts. The whole road is potentially a disaster. And that by itself is the message, not the, I recognize that what I'm about to try to finish saying is contradictory because on one hand, it's nice to have pictures that tell somebody that. And you don't always know that when you write something, people don't always read it. They might just look at the pictures and not the text. But the text can actually be the thing that drives what the illustrations are. And we don't really need to go into the details of just how bad it is other than because another problem is all of these roads, these three roads, yes, you might be able to interconnect to them, but they all essentially require everybody go down the hill to Portola Road. And they either will be able to drive or they won't. If they can't drive, their only option is to walk. And beyond that, they don't have any other options.
Well, I was thinking, one thing we could say in the text is it would be helpful if you had an e-bike charge available to get over landslide areas.
I think the committee is free to write various things like that. I think from the town's perspective, we want to be careful that we provide information. And we can suggest potential other routes could be bicycle, pedestrian, equine, e-bike, etc. But I think we want to be careful from my perspective as being a town official that I don't state something that's misinterpreted as a requirement or me telling somebody to do something. I understand from your guys' perspective, you're part of the community. So you can say that and stuff. My perspective is, here's what the rules and regulations are, here's what my suggestions are. Let me give you as much information as I can. But ultimately, as I'm in the government, I don't want to tell people what to do. It's ultimately, so I have to write a fine line because even now we can know where we think landslides will happen. But the truth of the matter is, if there's a drainage change or something changes in 5 years, I don't know.
And some landslides, many of these landslides have had repairs, and then you don't know which ones.
So I would say that in some of these areas, there's a question. I think that maybe the community as a whole would be designated a risk, a high likelihood of landslide as a risk. But again, we want to be careful about all this stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Typically, if there's a high, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Typically, if there was a high likelihood of a landslide, there might be a consideration in a town with landslides of there being a signage posted at various locations saying, rockfall hazard or landslide hazard. Do not recommend stopping, kind of deal. But again, we need to be careful about that too, because signage in this town is also a big item that a lot of people don't like seeing people on signage, especially in front of their house or nearby. So I think it's an open question. I don't have a good answer. I would look forward to whatever discussion you guys see on this.
I anticipate that one, we're not going to resolve this question in this meeting. And I anticipate though that what we're going to end up doing is experimenting. We'll put together a draft of maybe a map that shows it this way and another map that shows it that way. And we'll have to figure it, well, the path of how we actually come to whatever we actually do and produce is going to be slightly a bit of a mystery, but it'll be part of the process of getting the job done.
I like that idea, and then we could go to EPC and have a discussion with them.
It also might be as simple as designating certain neighborhoods as higher risk of roads being blocked. For instance, typically if you were part of the EPC, what you might do is designate a community or an area a high risk of needing alternative transportation in an emergency. So typically you wouldn't see something of, okay, here's all these landslides. Typically you'd see a brief neighborhood write-up saying, this community recommended travel bag, high likelihood of needing alternative transportation. recommended exit via XYZ exit upon evacuation. If road is blocked, alternative routes through Alpine, for instance. Because in evacuation too, it's 3 sentences. That's all you're gonna get from people most of the time, is what do I bring? Where do I go? How do I get there?
Okay. Thank you.
May I descend to the level of trivia and note what I believe is a typo on the town map here?
Thank you, Robert.
Wyndham, I
Yeah.
believe, is WY, not WI, at least
And,
according to Google.
and elsewhere it's called Wyndham Avenue on this, yes.
In our quest for a more perfect union.
Oh, not Wyndham, I'm sorry. It's, it's,
I moved them.
Wayside Avenue up here at the top. Wayside Avenue and Wyndham is spelled, right?
May all of your advice was really helpful, Robert. Thank you. And but one thing that struck me is you kind of alluded to different levels of complexity for different purposes. It reminded me, I did a lot of work over the years on Forest Service land, and they have just a spectrum of level of detail in their maps, ranging from really sketch maps to road maps to show every tree maps. And the show every tree maps, they don't hand out, but if you really need to know where all the firefighting water sources are, culverts, lock gates, they do have those. And I'm thinking back to paper days, but there's no reason you can't have a spectrum of maps for working purposes. There's.
Okay, yeah, that's true. We could have, maybe, fire district might like to know where the landsides actually are. No, I'm really glad you came. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you very much. I know how to turn the Zoom off, but normally we never touch the computer. We just let it run.
Thank you. Well, that was helpful. Thank you, everybody, for that. Okay. Work plan for remainder of 2025. Are we going to be able to get out anything? I was hoping we could have a trial map, and if it's a really simple one with a simple narrative for this neighborhood, say, we could probably just whip it out really quickly and have it for the December meeting. Okay, doesn't have to be perfect, though, just a draft. I know what you're thinking.
Okay.
And it can be, it's just based on what you've done already in terms of the road, no more roads.
Right.
Think we can do that? We should be able to do just one. Just a draft and to get comments.
Well, I'm willing to put it on my to-do list, but I'm not willing to make a promise that it's actually going to be completed. I will make a good faith effort to make it happen, but I
already have the base map.
I know I'm looking at two very distinguished professors, and I might end up getting an incomplete on my assignment, but I will try to actually do the assignment.
Okay, so if we can get get this done. Okay, Simon, is there anything from, Simon and Bob, from the, for the, let's see. I guess we need to contact building and planning, Victoria, Scott and Shire in some order. So I will work on that for the,
And
what do you call it, fault investigation.
thank you. And I have just now reached out to the spouse of a mid-pen ranger who is or was resident at the Hawthorns to ask for advice there.
That is priceless. Good for you. Thank you. Oh, there's one thing I forgot to mention. It should be back in the first section, the public comments. Did everyone get an invitation to the volunteer dinner, December 5th? In the email. Steve, did you?
Yes.
Okay, Bob, it should be in the email. Simon, did you?
I don't believe so, but I love dinner.
What, you do or do not?
I do,
You
I do.
Okay, so highly recommend attending. It's a lot of fun. And you can talk to people from EPC
Great.
offline.
Or appreciation party,
Yes,
Okay.
that's right.
potluck appreciation party.
All right, and Steve, do you think, okay, we need to get another volunteer to work with Steve on resilience. I can't volunteer Gary or Pat because they're not here.
Oh, we always volunteer people who aren't here.
Oh,
That's their reward for not being here.
Think I should volunteer? No.
Absolutely.
No.
You've never been at a faculty meeting.
Let's see. So Bob or Simon, would you at least initially be willing to work with Steve on his first project? I believe is going to be following up on his.
Oh, you know,
This-
it would be good for that. She's hiking.
What?
You mentioned following up on the little note I wrote from Japan, right?
Right.
So I was just realizing Pat's hiking over there right now on a
Do you want
10-day
to-
hike. She'll come back all knowledgeable.
You want to email her and ask her if she'll
Okay.
join you in that project?
Yeah,
At least that project.
yeah.
That'd be great. Okay, thank you. You think we can get something done by the end of the year? Just something, a draft out or just a quick?
Sure.
Okay. That'd be great. Oh, you can tell her she's been volunteered by the forum at the meeting. No. Okay. Okay, that'd be great. So if we can get those things out, draft of the map and narrative for the Woodside Highlands, start investigating where who has which, reports for the Sequoias and Midtown. And get at least a draft out on the, on Japan's resilience to natural hazards, which is our, I guess it's a gold standard. Did you say, Steve? I think that would be good work for the.
And, you know, as I told you, I'm going back over there in a couple weeks a natural hazards related meeting, so
Yeah.
I can have it on my mind over there, when I'm
Sure.
over there too.
Will you and Pat overlap at all?
No,
Oh, okay. Okay, yes, so that's great. And Simon, so you mentioned, I jumped ahead, but this is sort of committee, a subcommittee, or I guess we could do this by projects rather than subcommittees. We don't have to have official subcommittees.
So I am interested in reaching out to the Emergency Preparedness Committee in Woodside and the town manager in Woodside, and simply letting them know that I'm now serving on the Portola Valley Committee, and simply exploring what are mutual areas of interest. And I guess I'm asking for a hunting license.
A hunting license?
Hunting license.
Yes,
Yeah, absolutely.
thanks.
Yeah. I think you will probably find some fair game. Okay, so we'll put that on the project for the due by December 31st.
Progress.
You know why this wasn't done years ago? I don't know. And Woodside and Portola Valley is so closely entwined geologically.
Separated by a common boundary.
Exactly. Okay, I have another question here. Twice, I have been so tempted. I've gone to my computer and almost started writing about a swarm of earthquakes. The last one was the one that Bob and I talked about. There were 11 at the intersection of 280 and
Woodside Road,
what, Kenyatta? It's Kenyatta, right?
Woodside Road.
Woodside? No, Kenyatta. It was farther north, I think. No, Woodside Road? Anyway, there were 11 there, right there. And I wanted to write about them and just explain what they were and the significance and, or lack thereof. And I could do that as a resident. I can always write on PV Forum or whatever, but I would rather have, and it has to, it's something that has to be done on the sort of the spur of the moment. You know, it happens and then you write about it and then 3 months later, no one cares about it. But it's at the moment, you know, at the moment of the earthquakes, people feel them, they're concerned about them. And I think we need to respond.
for
So,
some reason I hadn't heard of those. Can you give us a little, I've read about the ongoing storm in the East Bay
oh,
right now.
at Mount Diablo right now.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the swarms are pretty regular over there and I don't think people understand them, the driving force very well.
Well, I mean, should we comment on those? I mean,
Well, I think you should be, those people, people who look at the newspaper or something will have heard of those too, so, and they're kind of going, they're
Okay.
going on right now, so.
and every so often there's something happening on the Calaveras, the swarm of smaller earthquakes there. So here's a question. How can, we need I don't think we should be responding as individuals. We could do that. But we can't as a member of the committee without prior committee approval.
Mm.
Okay. So what is the best mechanism here for someone, anyone, or a subset of people on the committee to be authorized to, just to write with the weight of the committee?
I think that's a very good idea. It's clear that we need a subcommittee of 3. One person who takes initiative to write just a few lines, and the other 2 to say, yep, that sounds sensible, to make sure that we don't put out anything that is too alarmist or scientifically unlikely.
Could we have a standing committee on current events that was kind of tasked with, if there was things in the news about natural hazards, to write something to update the website? Kind of a generic task rather than specific to this swarm, so you could kind of, wouldn't have to reinvent it every time you.
Yeah, I
Well,
like that idea.
There's a
Good.
couple of ways to do it, but there's some issues with the Brown Act that get in play.
Well, you
Well,
could have,
that's why I thought it, have a subcommittee charged with current events, right, and updating the
Yeah.
website.
Well, let me address that. You're not allowed to have a permanent subcommittee.
Oh, right.
but
I
that's
remember.
okay. It could change. We could start it out this way. And then maybe
2026
next week.
subcommittee.
That's exactly right. You can have a subcommittee that is for a certain period of time, and then you reconstitute it for another period of time.
Or we find that there's really a different um, purpose it really should be serving. We're not serving the correct purpose, and then we change its charter. Yeah, well, we need to start it out, though, I think.
So, as a suggestion, we could say have a subcommittee that has a life expectancy of some arbitrary amount of time, 6 months, 1 year, something. And then say that these are the members that are going to be on that committee for what? We could start off with, I don't know, I'd like to hear what other people think, 6 months? Or is that too short? 1 year? Is that too long? Or is that just right? I don't know.
So I think there's the opportunity here I see is less the provision of instant information than that a short paragraph about a swarm beneath us that may happen next time it rains hard. More important, perhaps, is that there would then be an equal amount of material that would be here is the link to your town geology map. Here is the link to the Woodside Fire Service recommendations for earthquake mitigation safety. Here is the link to the resilience information on the town website. And I think that although it will be of interest to PD Forum, I assume this would go out on PD Forum. It will go out on Nextdoor as well, I suppose.
Well, every
Which-
time something like this happens, I get requests from friends, say, Nan, please write something. And I don't feel that I could do it, but
I have at least once responded to PD Forum about such a swarm, and I can't find my old post.
yeah, I remember that.
But I'm thinking that the committee here has an opportunity to use it as a teachable moment
Yeah.
where we provide the information, where should you be going?
Mm-hmm.
If swarm that earthquake hazard, as we understand it, is always highest immediately following another.
Yeah.
The probability is always low at any instant and is elevated but still low after small earthquakes. Nonetheless, it provides a wonderful time to review your personal safety. Is your house prepared? What happens in the big one?
So this discussion is very, on one level, very exciting. Some of the things that I'm trying to summarize what I'm getting out of this discussion. The idea of having a format which would include links, so that essentially that's the body of you plop in a paragraph or page or whatever of what you want to write about, but you already have some kind of format that has the other information already there. If sort of merge these two things together, one is to create this format or template. Template's a better word, not format. Creating a template would be great, and then you pop in whatever you want to write. Yeah.
So perhaps that could be an agenda item a month from now to simply assemble some suggestions from committee members for what would be the boilerplate at the bottom of each of these emails. So that is template. And then it makes the creation of just the local update a much easier opportunity.
Excellent. And this sort of runs into something I've been working on, and that is, I've been working with Elizabeth Martelli in the town on getting some of the things we've already written on the town website and getting the map, evacuation map, in the Geologic Safety Committee page on the website. And I thought it would be really easy. We just have, 4 or 5 things. And then I started thinking about it, and we've got a 2-level menu with 10 or a dozen, top menu items. So it got a little more complicated. But we want to be able to publish on the town website anything that we put out on the committee, as a committee. The other committees do it. If you look at tips from the Wildfire Preparedness Committee or from the Conservation Committee, they're all there. They may put out a monthly tip, but they up them all on their page on the website.
Do they have say a person on the committee who's, has access to modifying the website, or do they feed information to somebody in the town?
I think they feed information to the person on the town who's has the authority to change the website.
So
And-
individuals, on
No.
committees don't?
No. So I went through Darcy, who went through Cory Booker, who was here, the assistant town manager, and then she asked Elizabeth Martelli to take care of it.
Hmm.
Okay. Anyway, so, but this is, so there would be a menu item for, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Current events or, comments, committee comments on current events, something like that. That could be one of the menu items for our page. Bob, you're
So,
thinking.
yeah, well, the wheels that are going through in my head are, what would be the links? What links would be the good links to have in a
Well, that's what-
template?
That's what you're
So
supposed
I
to think
that's
about.
another different agenda item.
Yeah, that's for December, yeah. So Simon suggested that as an agenda item for December, to come up with a blank template.
No, these are 2 different agenda items. One is a template for emails that we will send out opportunistically,
Yeah,
and the other is to think through a template on the town website for what is the top link and then the tree beneath that. You'll remember that last time I expressed frustration. I couldn't find the maps on the website while I was sitting there. And everyone said, oh, yes, it's down here, try this. And I think it is well worth devoting 20 minutes to thinking through how different users will try and access different information and how we can get them to that before they log off after frustration.
So,
Do not want to be the AT&T help response line.
okay, so we've got 2 items for December. One is a template for the current event comments, emails, and the other is a how to organize our material on the website. They go to our page.
so if I,
Actually, the maps, the geologic and ground movement potential maps are under planning and building. They are official town maps, but we could link to them too.
question or comment, a bit of both. If I trying to understand what I'm hearing, are we talking about perhaps making a mock-up, however crude or detailed we choose to make it, of what we would like to have as a general design of our web page that's in the town website, our little committee's web page? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, at least the links we would ask on the town webpage. There's presumably a link that says committees or something, or public information, or I don't know what the town website.
It's already, you go to committees up at the top, a government committee. Okay. It's already, It's already done.
Right, right.
Okay,
And then-
government committees, and then there's a list of committees and you check on, click on our committee, and there's nothing.
Right, and
Okay,
so
and that's the part that we need to fill out.
there's
once we get
about,
the committee.
there's a meeting time, there's members,
Yeah, oh,
right.
okay,
But
but.
what we don't have is information within here. And so let me simply share this again so that it's easy for people to see what we have right now. Right, so this is the route that Nan sent me, government, town committees, Geologic Safety Committee. So we have the minutes and agendas, but it would be reasonable to have some links at, say, this level here. It could be home preparedness, right?
Hmm.
It could be evacuation route. It could be alarmist information about earthquakes. You know, and to me, probably I would not have thought about going to government town committees, geologic safety
Mm,
Ah,
information.
mhm.
Nonetheless, that's the route we're in. Certainly, it would be a link to the town geology map, right? And a link to the town plan may have a section on hazard that one would link to. It would might have a link to the USGS, you know, the 30-year magnitude 7 expectation. Simply a series of buttons, and I think this is where there's the brainstorming about what people are likely to look for. There's the brainstorming about how to get them there and potentially feed them other information at the same time.
Mhm.
And then the third item is a repository for all the work, all the reports and things that we've actually done.
So those items, you know, and my belief is that the menu of things to click on, every one of those items should be visible, which probably means no more than 5 or even 4 top links, each of which can then have 4 more links. It could be maps, for instance, geology evacuation, that is a link. It could be,
so you're talking essentially a series of sub web pages.
that's right, yeah, yeah. And they could literally just be a PDF when you hit on them, but I think we are almost required to assume people will find their way to this page.
Yes,
And then if they get there, we want to have, you know, 4 search buttons right here that capture
Mhm.
the things people will most look for. Could be recent and future earthquakes. It's, you know, and that's where the brainstorming comes in,
Yeah.
to try and get it, at least not the final version, but at least a sensible version before we ask the town. Simply task somebody to take our document, our content, and add.
Yeah, so this is maybe long-term and aspirational, or maybe we don't even really want it here, but I really appreciated John Wallace's presentation last week, but I was both intrigued and kind of appalled that there was a large archives of geotechnical data that even people on the committee didn't know how to access. Now, if that stuff is, whatever that stuff is nominally public, it'd be really nice to be able to reach it through this portal. It could be one of those things under the map.
Searchable
and the-
map.
Yeah,
Which you could ask for geotechnical information.
yeah, and it would be available through that. I mean, that would make it start to make it more of a real working,
So the town of Woodside has already sort of beaten us to the punch. They have something that I think at the very least is worth our time to look at.
Mm.
And I think we can, one comment about, thank you for bringing up, Steve, all that wealth of geotechnical data that's out there. And it was great to hear that Cotton Shires thinks that they have digitized all or at least most of it. It also suggests that if we just had a thumb drive and do a data transfer, we could absorb all of that information at once. What we do with it would be great. I recognize that having a map would be the ultimate, but short of a map, just having a table with addresses.
Maybe we could work towards a map, yeah.
Just at a minimum beginning, just have a table with an index of some kind. And then ultimately have a searchable map would be even better.
And I wonder if in terms of town politics, the fact that Woodside is ahead of us could be a talking point to the town council. You know, I have a friend who Lucy Jones, who went to work for the city of LA, you know, on their geologic hazard. She was getting nowhere with the Board of Soups and the mayor and so on until she thought of saying, San Francisco's already done that. And they were immediately like, let's do better, you know, and all of a sudden all the doors were open. And
So now I'm on the town Woodside website now, and I am pulling up, despite my average incompetence at searching websites, I have now found 3 reports on my own house.
Oh, wow.
Um,
That's impressive. That
Uh,
is impressive.
They're not actively linked. I'll need to go to the town to search for them.
Actually, I was told that we have done something similar. I think it's called the archives or something like that. But I didn't, the link I was given, I didn't have access to, so it wasn't a public link, I think. So we need to we can investigate that. Some of this may have been done. So we need to find out. And the other thing about, talking about digitizing, yeah, Bob, you and I need to keep our ears open for possibilities when we go to the meeting, the GIS meeting, November 21st.
Yeah.
There are so many possibilities here. Just to come into the 20th century, instead of the 21st.
I assume that the town has, if not a full-time GIS specialist, at least one of their staff members who has some GIS training level.
That was addressed in our last meeting, and what we were told is that the town does not have any of that, but they do have an intern that has GIS knowledge. What that intern hours and things, I have no idea. But we don't have a staff person. We have an intern.
So, and again, I was simply going to add that Stanford is a nearby resource where there are many capable students.
Ah,
And it's unclear how to make this an attractive volunteer project, but it's easy to imagine someone being paid a small number of hours to do work like this. And so it's very easy. The Stanford GIS facility is vertically beneath my office, so that's an easy contact. If there is something to ask them.
something specific, yes.
Yeah.
That's,
So I'm
Excellent.
very excited about many of these ideas. My anticipation of how this is going to go forward, let's see if that, I have no idea if I'm right or wrong, and that's not the point, is we're going to make a mock-up. We're going to end up making mock-ups of what we would like, and we will discuss them, and then the mock-ups will get modified, and it'll be an evolutionary process, and then eventually we will present to the town, this is what our committee would like in general for the town to do, and then we will try to figure out how to make it happen.
we could
agree.
ask Elizabeth, who's our contact, to come to the appropriate meeting, in which we think we have something we can present to her. I think maybe December's too early.
I anticipate that what we need, though, is to have some kind of template mock-up,
Huh.
to show what we're thinking so that the person who's going to do the work will actually have a visual roadmap of what we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. And that would make her life much easier. Okay. I will, contact Elizabeth and tell her what we're thinking. Because I had promised her a much smaller, a much smaller project. This is morphing into something much larger, but I think it's very important to do this.
Can we break this into phases? I mean, a moment ago, I just talked about having just a simple table. It seems like the ultimate is to have a searchable map, but do we have to put everything on hold until we have a searchable map? Can we break all of this up into small chunks and just see what we can get with the smallest chunk? What is the minimum that we really would like? And of course, there's always more that we want.
I could continue with what I've done, and that is simply to create a library of work that we've already finished that I would like to have officially on the Portola Valley website. That can be one chunk of it. A searchable map. Okay.
Well,
That's our way to get ahead of this.
There may be constraints on how we can organize things. I have no idea. That's why I want to talk to Elizabeth to see if there may be constraints on what can I say, technical expertise in modifying websites. Maybe some constraints here at the town, I don't know. Or maybe they're really good at this stuff.
well, when we get to the point where we actually have something that we present, we'll find out. In terms of priorities, my personal priority is to try to focus on what I sometimes refer to as a workbook, but a text report that goes along with the evacuation map. That to me seems like a separate project than the web page for our committee. I think both are important, and I don't want to try to have a resolution as to which is more important than the other. I am merely making a statement that because of the work that's been done on the evacuation map, I would like to see it finished in the sense that having a report that goes with it would help finish it.
The report,
Well,
a full report that goes with it, that was done. It's been done.
the neighborhood by neighborhood part is what I'm really.
Oh, the neighborhood, but yes. So as I was conceiving, putting this on the website, I had one menu item for evacuation maps and reports. And I would put everything under that, the full map in various formats and sizes and stuff. And the report that goes with that, and then the neighborhood maps with their reports. I put them all, list them in a very simple format, so where Elizabeth doesn't get too overwhelmed. Anyway, yeah, they need to go in there. They need to have their own section. Now maybe they get, one of Simon's links at the top of the page, evacuation. We'll discuss this in December. Okay. We're already past 12. Oh, yeah, okay, under new business, had the proposed list of subcommittees. We don't have to do that right now. We've discussed the most important projects that either are in subcommittees or fall under subcommittees. For instance, the Simon is, okay, I volunteer Simon for subcommittee on external coordination. But he needs, so that's with Woodside, but then he needs, someone who will work with EPC, for instance, the wildfire committee. So I know people on both, so I could work with you on that.
You want to
Yeah.
give me the relevant person on those two, then I can at least learn what their committees do before I talk to Woodside and discuss their framework. You need to get a formal approval of minutes.
Do we need to set up a subcommittee? We do.
Well, no, just for new business, the October meeting,
We need formal approval for what?
minutes of the October meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped. Thank you. Okay, do you want to go back right now?
Well, we're checking off these
thank you.
items so we can close
Thank
up.
you.
Right?
You're right, absolutely. We need to get this done. On the back of the agenda page are the minutes from last meeting. Does anyone have any comments?
Nope.
Changes? I had one change that I already made from Pat's first draft. Pat was kind enough to get this done before she took off on travel.
And Wallace
Wallace is what?
misspelled.
Is it? Oh, I missed it. Where is it? Oh, yeah, got it. Okay. So we need to,
Do you need,
So-
do you
so-
like to make the motion or do you need
Yes.
somebody to
yes,
address those?
we need, okay, so it's Steve's, you want to vote to, make that change?
Oh. Yes, I. agree.
Okay, have a second?
Mhm.
All in favor?
All right.
Any vote? We will roll call. Steve, are you in favor?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Simon?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. All in favor of changing spelling, John Wallace, and the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph under new business. Okay. Bob, are you taking notes?
Yeah, but I'm trying to.
May I make a motion to accept the minutes of the previous meeting?
Yes, and I will second it if I'm allowed to do that. All in favor? Okay. Roll call in favor of accepting the minutes as
As amended.
Steve, Bob,
Yes.
Simon, yes.
and yes.
So we've talked about the GIS working group. We've done a lot of work on subcommittees. And informally subcommittee assignment. Do you need any action today on GSC officers for 2026? Are they allowed to roll forward unchanged if there is no movement on that?
Okay, no, here's the thing, you have to have an election once a year. Typically, it's in December for the next calendar year. Sometimes we've missed by a month or two, but, you know, we should do that in December. And I put it on this, put the item on the agenda for today, so people could start thinking about whether they would like to be chair or vice chair or secretary.
I would like to ask the existing chair whether she is willing to continue in her position.
Oh.
You can take her answer offline. I would like to ask,
1 year.
I would like to ask the vice chair whether he is willing to continue. And he can think about it offline. And when we next hear from Pat,
We have to
I
hear from
suggest
her.
that we ask her if she is willing to continue.
So to answer your question, I'm willing to continue, but I'm also quite willing to give it to somebody else.
I only heard the first half of that.
Yeah, I also,
Excellent, excellent, excellent.
willing to relinquish the title.
Steve, when you talk to Pat, why not find out whether we can have a slate for election ready for the next meeting? And
Okay, the only problem is that if the, like, 2 many years with the same, make it pass right by the time.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Every year.
It is very clear to me that Pat will make a wonderful future chair, that you will make a wonderful future vice chair, and Bob will make a wonderful secretary. I have supreme confidence. Would you like to move to adjourn the meeting?
Are you trying to get us?
I am, yes.
Yes.
That would be splendid.
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Second?
Second, I second it.
First, and I can take roll call. Okay, we're done.
Uh,